1, 2. Hello, one and all, and welcome to another edition of The Kickout, the final word in professional wrestling. Sorry we missed you last week, but we had our show on Tuesday, so didn't want to do 2 back-to-back shows. But we are back at it again, and I, of course, cannot do this alone. My tag team partner, one half of the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, never wrong, Nick Bull. How you doing there, Nick?
I'm doing great, CZ. Greetings to you midweek. How are you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling pretty good. This week has been good so far. Sun shining, or at least as we record this. But I know that it's looking like a good week. I'm excited. And we've got some good stuff that we announced on Sunday coming up. We're not going to talk about that. There's a lot. We went over it on Sunday, but I'm excited for the next few weeks. We got WrestleMania coming up.
It's always exciting to share good news and to share stuff. It just shows that our show is growing. Of course, it's no secret here. We passed 1,000 followers on the Card Subject to Change side, and we're so happy for that. That's kind of an organic thing. Like, we really didn't outsource any of that. It was all kind of homegrown, word of mouth. Hey, come check these guys out, and that's kind of how it was. And we're kind of walking a little. We've been walking a little taller. Walking a little prouder, not walking tall with The Rock. No, we're just walking a little taller because we're happy we got 1,000 followers over here, and it's cool to know that people from all over the country, all over the world, are listening to this, and that's kind of neat. We're based here out of the Midwest, mostly just outside of the Quad Cities. Half of us are. The other half has been all over the place. You've done this show from all over this country at one point or another when you had your previous gig. So
yeah,
we've always been kind of based out of the Midwest, but we're all over, and we're so glad that you found us. Here's the Kickout. You can find us on Sundays on the Card Subject to Change podcast. Of course, both the Kickout and the Card Subject to Change podcast are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. Without them, we couldn't do this, and we want to thank them for coming along on the ride with us. Oh, so we had some big news on the show on Sunday. A lot of good wrestling going on lately. Can't really complain about any wrestling. What do you want to talk about, CZ?
Well, you and I, we don't always share the opinions of the reviewers of wrestling. We have our own opinions. We're entitled to those, but old Uncle Dave throws out star ratings throws out stars like they're going out of business. It's like a confetti party of stars. So let's talk a little bit about match ratings. I know we've discussed this on the main show before, but let's give it its own spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Now, listen, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth on this thing because I, as a wrestling fan, I mean, Dave Meltzer is the most respected voice among wrestling journalism. He's been doing it for years, so you kind of want to hear what he has to say, or you maybe value some of his opinions to some extent. I don't agree with everything Dave Meltzer does, but I respect the guy and know what he's done for the world of pro wrestling, of combat sports, and such. But when I know of guys like Kurt Angle and Randy Orton, who have never had a 5-star match, and then you got a guy like Will Ospreay who's had 48 5-star matches, and it's like, you're telling me Kurt Angle never wrestled a 5-star match? I mean, I'm sorry, he's one of the all-time greats in my book, and you're telling me that Randy Orton hasn't wrestled one? Come on, all those years he hasn't had one 5-star match. So, and if you look at it a little differently, very heavy Japan base. It just so happens, I heard it this past week. I think I heard it in Will Ospreay's interview with Chris Van Vliet. Dave Meltzer's found his flavor of ice cream he likes, and he's going to go back to it again and again and again. That's fine, whatever. The problem that I do have is I don't have a problem with Tony Storm and Mariah May getting 5 stars. I think I said to myself, maybe I said to the guys you were there that I watched it with, That's a 5-star match right there. I know when a 5-star match happens that I believe to be a 5-star match right away, and I didn't need Dave to make that even better. I just knew that. To me, it was the match of the card, and it was the best match of the night. But I don't know if the other two were 5 stars. The other two matches being Kyle Fletcher, Will Ospreay, which was a tremendous match. I'm not saying it wasn't 5 stars. And the Kenny Omega Takeshita match. Those could be argued, but he agreed that those were 5 stars. So, it was a pretty, when we reviewed the show, a couple weeks back on Card Subject to Change, we talked about it being a stacked card, but it's going to be remembered for what happened in the end. I mean, what do you think about all these 5-match ratings coming out? And by the way, that Tony Storm Mariah May match is the first 5-star match on U.S. soil, according to Dave Meltzer.
For women,
correct. I went back and watched it last night. I still think Rhea and Charlotte's better from WrestleMania 39. That's just my opinion. I thought that was a better match than Tony and Mariah. But Tony and Mariah still a good match.
Oh, absolutely. I can't disagree with that. Overall, I'm not a fan of star ratings over in general. I get their place. I will go along. I will say something is a 3, 4, 5-star match if I think it is. But for me, I think the person giving said star ratings, and no offense to Uncle Dave, I think he's a bit biased. You mentioned Kurt Angle, Randy Orton. Yes, 2 of the all-time greats never having a 5-star match, and Will Ospreay has 5,000 of them. Come on. Who's he leaning towards there? Who's his bias towards there? Let's be real. If I were to, honestly, if I were to grade a match, we do it with shows in general, but I think the letter grade system is a more stable system than the star ratings, especially when you go and the big joke, Pritchard says this on Something to Wrestle With all the time, but it'd be 7 stars in Tokyo. It'd be 7 stars in the Tokyo Dome. If you can go beyond your 5-star rating to 7, what's to stop you from doing 10, 20, 100 stars? That letter grade system, just like when you were growing up in school, A, B, C, D, or F, with a plus and minus on either end of those.
Yeah, you'll get people, they'll give an A++ on something for sure.
Right.
But I know where you're going with the letter thing, and I don't mind the letter thing, to be honest with you. A lot of times if I miss a show, don't have time really to go back and watch or want a reason to go back and watch, I'll go right away to, it's either Bleacher Report, and I think CBS Sports does it too, with letter grades. They'll letter grade the match, they'll letter grade the segment, they'll letter grade the show. And I find that to be well done. Like the most recent review they did of the review that I read was the night that NXT, the Roadblock show of NXT.
Yeah.
We had Obafemi and Moose. We had Gianna we had Julia and Stephanie Vaquer. We had the Hardys against Fraxium. We had who else?
Even
Jordan Grace, Roxanne Perez, and then we have one more match I don't remember. But like everything was rated
stacked card.
Everything was rated B+ to A- on matches and for the show. So I don't mind that, because I feel letter grade's more universal than what a star system is, because if you were to name your top 10 matches of all time and I were to name my top 10 matches of all time, I don't know if there's no way all 10 of those are 5-star matches.
Right.
So
and we may agree on some, but we'd probably disagree. We'd probably have a lot of different matches.
I don't know. I don't even know how many 5-star matches I'd have. Maybe 4, 5, 6. Maybe. I don't know. But like, if you go by the star rating system, you should have all 5-star matches as your top 10.
Well, yeah, and then they'd all be Will Ospreay. Nothing, no offense to him.
That's why I look at that star thing and scratch my head. I mean, when some matches, which look obviously better to you as a fan, are getting a lower rating than maybe a match that happens over in AEW, he's kind of buttered his bread now with AEW, so he's going to rate them a little bit higher. That's just the way it is. But I know a good match when I see one, and I know a 5-star match when I see one. And it's always good to reference. It's always good to reference maybe Uncle Dave's takes on things and his star references to see how out of whack he is, or maybe to see how aligned he is with you. But don't hold any stock in them. Rate a match how you want to watch wrestling for. You want to watch wrestling for. I guarantee we're all watching wrestling for different reasons. Guaranteed. That's the way. That's human nature. That's just the way it is as being a wrestling fan. Everybody sees you, and I don't watch for the same things. We do watch for some same things, but we don't watch all for the same things. So, with that being said, don't rely on these. Go with your heart on these, and rate things how you see them, not how someone else sees them.
And that's the thing. It's really subjective how you see the greatest match in the world. To me, is not going to be the greatest match in the world to you. It's the same for everybody. You're going to have a difference of opinion all across the board because, quite frankly, wrestling is a buffet. There's something for everybody. And our tastes aren't the same on everything. We share some similar thoughts on a lot of things, but you're way more of a tag team guy than I am, for sure. You love FTR way more than I do, just to throw out that tag team. Hell, you're a Brett guy. I'm a Shawn guy. The biggest debate in wrestling, arguably, who's better?
Right.
Yeah, it's really subjective. And don't let someone dictate what your 5-star matches are, what your favorite matches are. It's really up to you.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, don't let somebody else determine your fandom, or don't let somebody else ruin your fandom. Stick to your guns, believe in what you believe in, and watch wrestling for whatever you watch wrestling for. That's what I do, man. Yeah, I watch it as an escape. I love tag team wrestling, et cetera. But yeah, it's an escape. It's fun. It's great, and keep wrestling great. And yeah, just go with your heart on these ratings things, because one person, what may be gold to one person is trash to another. One man's trash is another man's treasure. So
exactly.
Yeah. Just look at him. I take him with a grain of salt. I read it like the horoscope. I treat his ratings like the horoscope. I look at it, laugh, and just roll my eyes. That's kind of what it is, So that's kind of how I look at it, and I think that's how you should look at it too. But yeah, if you like what you hear here, straight wrestling talk. This is our short form show. It's called The Kickout. It's Wednesdays at 6. Our long form show, The Card Subject to Change, over on the For Frequency's Sake Network, as long as this show. That airs on Sundays, or we record live. So Sundays at 6:30. What, excuse me?
Mostly.
Asterisk, card subject to change, depending on when our guests can make it and when shows that are on that we review, we may push it back a day or two. But mostly we are on Sundays at 6:30. Stay tuned to us. Find us on socials. CZ, what do we have coming up on this week's show, or this week's episode, of CSTC?
I think you're going to love this week's show. I know I am. We have really a jack of all trades. He's got his hands in Zawa, Dreamwave, Social Experiment Wrestling, who just made their debut last month. We'll be talking with Zeke Zishi, and I think that's going to be a really fun, unique perspective because of all that he does here in the independent scene in the Midwest in wrestling.
Absolutely. I'm really interested in picking his brain, seeing on some who his influences are, because I've, my knowing of him is at a Dreamwave show, and seeing him come out and, get armpitted by the Nasty Boys, and to take the bumps that he does. I'm very interested in how he entertains a crowd. So I'm very interested to get to know him next week, and of course talk wrestling with a wrestling fan. That's what we're here for.
Exactly. And you know him from Dreamwave. I know him from there as well. I had the pleasure of meeting him at a Zawa show last month. Really, really good dude, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to sit down and chat with him. I think it's going to be a good talk.
That'll be coming up Sunday on the card, subject to change. He's the Wizard CZ at the Wizard CZ. I'm never wrong Nick Bull at Nick Bull 55. Reach out to us on socials. We love to talk wrestling, and we love to talk wrestling with fans old and new. But this has been the Kickout, the final word in professional wrestling.
This has been a For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network production. For more great content, subscribe to For Frequency's Sake on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.